Hey Connor, I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for adding me on LinkedIn. And I saw the video that you posted on the making you flinch technique of negotiation. And I wanted to take a moment to reply to that and give you a little constructive feedback because presenting and communication are things that I specialize in. So hopefully I can give you some good feedback here that's constructive and will help you going forward. And if that's not what you want, then don't watch this video. All right. So the first thing that I kind of noticed as I was watching it was a kind of general lack of visual cues. So that could be in the form of pictures, of diagrams, of really anything that triggers the part of my brain that is visual to cue into the presentation and start paying attention to it. And that a little bit of picture will go a really, really long way in a presentation like this, especially when you get to the part at the beginning that I really like that you put in, the part about you are a negotiator. You negotiate with these people, with those people, about this, about that, and I think that was a really great empowering piece to start your presentation off with. But if you could present maybe visual cues of that, pictures of people maybe doing presenting or different situations, or at least something that appears to be different situations where people are acting as negotiators, I think it would be a much more powerful tool that way. So maybe consider some visual cues there, especially to really hone in on the fact that you're telling your audience they're already good at something. And if you can cue the part of their brain that's visual to pay attention at that point, you'll really have them hooked. It'll work really well. And then if there are other places where you can put really subtle visual cues in, do that as well, because it helps visual learners, and there are a lot of visual learners out there. So it helps them stay focused and pay attention to whatever you're saying. The section that you have about theory is a little bit wordy, I'm going to go ahead and say. Whenever you have bullet points, you want to keep your bullet points as concise as possible. So say no more than a very short sentence, like 5 words per bullet point. The bullet point should act more as a reminder for you to say something than as content. The content should come in the form of what you're saying. Your words are your medium, the words that you're speaking, that is. The words on the screen are just reading that the audience has to do, and nobody wants to read if they're being talked to. It's kind of counterintuitive. So I would maybe make the theory section more concise, both in terms of the words on the screen, and I would actually spend a little less time talking about it, because I don't think that's the most important part. I think the most important part is actually when you start talking about the counter techniques. I feel like the counter techniques are really the meat of this thing, because you're trying to give your audience a clue as to what to do when someone starts trying to make them flinch, which is really, really important, I think, because you acknowledge that this is not a good negotiation tactic, and that if it is being enacted upon us, we have some kind of defense against it. So when you get into the countering part, I would also maybe consider adding something that acknowledges the fact that once you begin to establish that you're not going to take this person's bossing you about, for whatever reason the example is that might be happening in a person's life where they're encountering this, you might want to add that this isn't like a once and done type of thing. You're not just going to confront this person who is trying to make you flinch and they're going to suddenly stop doing that forever. That it's going to be an ongoing process. So you may want to mention that you're going to have to be consistent. You're going to have to really dig your heels in, and however it is that you choose to sort of back yourself up and not take this person's aggression towards you, it's going to be it's part of a process, and that person is going to learn over time that they can't push you around. So maybe add an element that lets the audience know that this is part of a larger process, not like a once and done kind of thing. And your example, I actually think your example could be a bit stronger, and here's why. The example that you mentioned has a very clear power differential. So the landlord is the person of power, and the tenant is the person of no power. However, even in this differential, there's a contract between the two of them, that they sign at the beginning, the lease agreement, that states exactly what the landlord can and cannot do, exactly what the tenant is or is not responsible for. And in any case where there is, say, a discrepancy between the two parties, whatever's in the lease is really what goes. And there are a lot of things in place, laws specifically, to protect tenants from landlords that um, basically don't follow their own lease. And there are laws also protecting landlords from tenants that don't follow the lease. So there are a lot of things already in place to stop this kind of thing from happening. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just saying there's actual legal recourse in this case. So the example that you're giving, only because of the way that you present your counter as being a very personal type of thing between two people, anywhere where there's like a legal way around it might not be the strongest example. You might consider changing it to something along the lines of, and this is just something I've encountered, so I'm bringing it up. You can take it or leave it. Of two colleagues who start on the same playing field. So there's a colleague who's been doing the job for a really long time, and a colleague who's new to the job, but they both have the same title, the same responsibilities, basically the same everything, except one person is newer than the other person. And in a lot of cases like that, I've actually seen it happen in institutions in higher ed, in corporations, everywhere. The person who's been there and established longer delegates things to the new person, and the new person has no recourse to say, well, in my job description, it doesn't say you can't do that to me. And like they have no defense basically against the person who is on the same playing field as they are, level to them, telling them what to do and delegating things to them. And so that might be like a slightly stronger case or something in that realm. Um, so that the two people who are having um, this disagreement where negotiation is required are on the same level, and that there is no actual legal recourse for either one of them to take, might make a slightly stronger case, just so that you can bring back the point of the counters that you bring up. So you mention them once, and then a really great way to wrap up your example, which I think is where you should spend a lot of your time in your example, because that's where people are going to remember a little better, is bring up those counterpoints again at the end of it. So that way, that's the last thing your audience is left with, and they will remember that even more effectively. I hope I didn't talk too much. I probably talked too much. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.